It is time for Saturday Morning 101. This is a new series that we started a couple of months ago. I can't believe it's already been a couple of months. Just going through the Saturday morning essentials. Basically, what you need to be familiar with to understand the Saturday morning experience between like 1965 to 1999, 2000. That span of time, the golden age of Saturday mornings. And our fans voted and gave us a list of things that we need to cover. And this morning, we are up to one of my all time favorites. And this show ran for 9 years. I'm talking about dum da dum, but da 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 dum, the Super Friends. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Robin, Marvin, Wendy, and Wonder Dog. Now, I know, Drew, you're giving me this look like, who is Marvin and Wendy? Who the heck are Marvin and Wendy?
Wendy looks
Because
like the secretary.
no, they were junior Super Friends in training. And so the Super Friends, the Justice League had this superhero training program. And Marvin and Wendy were and Wonder Dog were training to become superheroes. Only problem was they didn't have any superpowers or any extraordinary abilities. I
Neither
gotta
did
think.
Batman.
Well, but Batman had money and
Yeah.
talent and skill. But I gotta think that this
Did he
probably
though?
was. Oh, D's gonna get hate mail now for that. But I'm thinking this has got to be something that Batman concocted because he kind of has this history of adopting young people who have no superpowers and thrusting them into a life of crime fighting. And Marvin and Wendy were basically hero support for the first two seasons of the Super Friends, and then
Do you have that other graphic of Super Friends for me?
hold on,
Okay.
let's stay together. It's more
Okay,
fun when
okay,
we get there at the same time.
Sorry.
So then, let's see. So anyway, these five were the Super Friends in the first two seasons. And then in season 3, Marvin and Wendy graduated, and we met Jan and Zaina and Gleek. And D, do you remember? You've probably heard the phrase Wonder Twin Powers activate.
Nope.
Form of?
You've never heard anyone say Wonder Twin Powers activate?
Mm-mm.
What?
Form of?
A Tyrannosaurus.
Form of an ice sculpture.
Yeah. So, D, you're going to love this. So, Jaina would transform into animals. And she could transform into a Tyrannosaurus, an eagle, a bear, any type of, and not just earth animals, any animal from the cosmos. Anything that she had ever seen, she could transform into. But Zan, he could only transform into water-based things. So where she would transform into like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, he would transform into a bucket of water or an ice slide or a puddle. And apparently that was, and she's not even listening to me. She's on the phone. That's fantastic. But whereas Marvin and Wendy were hero support, Zan and Jaina became actual heroes. They were integral to the story, and that phrase, Wonder Twin Powers activate, became popular in pop culture and became one of the most uttered phrases besides May the Force be with you. And yet, D. Barty still had never heard it. That's
pretty
phenomenal.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I in some world I think that Marvin and what's the other girl's name?
Marvin and Wendy.
Marvin and Wendy turned into Jan and Zan. Let's just have that imagination that they turned into them.
Zan and Jaina, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. No.
No, it's not at all.
No.
But and the monkey and the dog turned into the monkey. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's
And
let's
Gleek had no superpowers. He was just a monkey that was blue from another planet
I mean
and wore
hey,
clothes with a cape. That's how he came in the set.
Superheroes needed a mascot.
That's right. But then, also in season 4 or 5, we started to be introduced to some new heroes. Some new heroes joined the Super Friends: El Dorado, Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, and Samurai. And they would make guest appearances along with Rima the Jungle Girl. And they were really introduced in the season that became the Challenge of the Super Friends, which the Challenge of the Super Friends also brought in other characters like Hawkman, Green Lantern, The Flash. And this is the show that you guys, if anyone out there remembers the Super Friends, they remember the Challenge of the Super Friends because they were fighting the Legion of Doom. 13 villains from across the cosmos. And you'll remember they rose up from the swamp in this domed headquarters that looked like a skull. This is what most people remember. And so DBRT, as she's playing on her phone.
I'm actually not playing. You don't even know. I just made a phone call.
I know. I did know. I saw.
My kid called me. She was having an emergency.
Oh, that's everything okay?
Yeah.
But I put
well,
this up
maybe I don't know. My husband. I told her to call my husband.
That's funny.
We'll see.
I put this up just for you.
Yay! Super Friends!
Because D is a fan of all things super and all things friends. So here's what I can't figure out. Oh, Ross must be in Batman.
I was just about to ask that question.
So Chandler is Aquaman, the joke of the Super Friends, and Joey is Superman. So what was Courtney Cox's character name?
Monica.
Monica is Wonder Woman. Phoebe is Black Canary, and
Rachel
is Hawkgirl.
That almost works, except for Ross being Batman.
Well, I don't think Chandler or Ross would qualify to play a superhero. I'm just saying.
Tough takes, Johnny.
I kind of
I don't know. Chandler kind of looks like the SpongeBob version of
Mermaid Man.
Mermaid Man.
So that's hysterical, D. So, I had forgotten that Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy were a direct spin-off of the Super Friends. And that kind of plays into how they made Aquaman a joke. Because the joke about Aquaman only being able to talk to fish and only being useful in the water comes from the Superman's series, which, D knows this. I've always maintained that Aquaman is bad to the bone. And when he's played right, a la Jason Momoa, he's total badass. But that's just me.
Yeah, and in the Justice League Unlimited show, he was pretty cool. And then in the actual Young Justice show, he's like pretty cool with like the hook hand, and he's like killing people. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that comes right out of the comics where he had his hand eaten off by piranhas. But Super Friends it ran from 1973 to 1985 originally on ABC, and then it was renewed and it ran all the way through 1986. So 1973 to 1986, and most people remember the Challenge of the Super Friends, but a lot of later fans will remember the show as the legendary Superpowers show or the Superpowers Team Galactic Guardians. And it was the Superpowers show, Super Friends, the legendary Superpowers show, that spawned the line of action figures. And I should have brought them up. I have the entire line that's currently on shelves today, and available at Walmart and Target. Very, very cool. But we got some great comments, and let's see. Wow, we got a ton of comments. So talking about, Kate is going to give you guys some heat here. He's going to throw some shade. Got to freshen up those nerdisms, guys.
Sorry.
Now, you guys watched what I sent you, which was the intros, two pieces of one episode. Did anyone, well, except for Dee, she didn't watch anything. Did any of you take what I sent you and go down a rabbit hole and do some more of your own investigation?
I've already I've done the rabbit hole thing probably like a year ago. Watched a bunch of episodes and I'm just like, no, okay, I think I've had enough.
Well,
I think it was the wrong season.
Yeah, by the time you get to the Challenge of the Super Friends, it gets really good.
Yeah,
the writing becomes more mature. It's not as childish, and it was so cool to see this huge group of superheroes fighting this huge group of supervillains every week.
and it's interesting because I think in watching the top 10 episodes, they talked about how one of the writers for the original comic books came in and started writing on the show, and that added a lot more value and gravitas to the characters that they had on both sides, the villains and the heroes. The one thing I didn't like in the first couple seasons, and and I was screaming to the Raptor, he's my favorite DC character, even though I hate DC. The Flash was introduced very late in the series, and when he came in, he had a little bit more of the oomph that I wanted to see. So I like those episodes, and then the episode that became like the I think they do this on every show now, is that they pit the villains, like 3 villains. I think the guy was a wizard or something, and he brought the villains to this planet, and it was like pitting them against challenges. And at the end, of course, they worked together to actually save the day. So I was like, I like that episode. It was always good to see they do that in mostly every cartoon. It's kind of like Secret Wars.
Yeah, that episode was, we think, probably inspired Jim Shooter to write Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, based on that wizard episode. But Cade with Cartoon Commotion said, I watched 2 episodes of Super Friends, Challenge of the Super Friends last night, Secret Origins, and the final challenge. I think Challenge of is really when the show kicked in gear. Yes, I agree. That is when the show really became super exciting, and that's the show that I really loved as a kid. I mean, I loved Super Friends from birth. I mean, from 73, I was 3 years old, all the way through 86. But when it became Challenge of the Super Friends, that's when my most distinct memories of the show are. And Dave Mattingly says, form of a bucket of water. Now, D. Barty, if you're someone needing a superhero to save you, and the Wonder Twins say Wonder Twin powers activate, and Jaina becomes this giant mastodon or T-Rex, and her partner becomes a bucket of water, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking
Help
I'm
me.
running
Help
because
me,
it's a
Super
T-Rex.
Friends.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking I'm not calling these super friends.
I feel like the bucket of water is more useful than the T-Rex. And here's why.
Only against the Wicked Witch of the West.
But also, hey, if somebody's parched, if somebody needs to be hydrated, if there's a fire because maybe what's it, Geo fire, whatever, I forgot the evil villain's name that could shoot fire, like, or you know, or what else? What I'm thinking, if there's dirt on the ground, if something needs to be cleaned.
Well, with
I
the
feel
bucket
like,
of water, does
and what you do
Aquaman
with
come with
T-Rex?
that?
T-Rex he can't even use his arms. He can't use his arms. What he's doing? He's gonna bite something. He's
Well, now in the comic series, there was a Super Friends comic series, and this is my favorite single issue of the Super Friends comic series. Oh, and I forgot that too. I've got the collected omnibus edition, the entire series in 2 hardcover editions downstairs. I loved this comic series. Um, this is Ice Maiden. This was a multi-part series in the comic series that introduced the Guardians of the Globe, and it was awesome. It was epic. But in this issue, Jaina becomes this like horned, almost like a manticore type, like a lion with a unicorn horn, and these. I mean, she was awesome. It was awesome. So Jaina was useful, but Zan, he was a puddle. I never that always frustrated me beyond words.
What would you need more? A T-Rex, Manticore, or water if you're in the desert? Thank
In
you.
the desert, water. but how many times are you going to be on an adventure fighting crime in the desert?
How many times are you going to see a Kryptonian lifting up a planet? What's happening here, Johnny? It's superheroes, baby.
I don't know. If I'm in the desert, I'm riding that T-Rex out of there.
You're going to ride a T-Rex? That's the wrong thing to do.
All right.
So Don
He
Dula
can't reach
says,
me if I'm on his back.
that's true.
That is true.
Oh, D, you need to see Iron Sky 2. We'll talk offline. The bucket of water always annoyed the heck out of me, says Don Dulas. Yeah, it did me too. And they did a Wonder Twins comic series recently, and they rectified that, and they made Zan pretty awesome, because water-based powers can be pretty fantastic. I mean, think about how destructive water is when there's a flood. Water can either, like fire, can either sustain life or create massive destruction. So, when you use water-based powers the right way, it can be pretty epic.
Weren't they also they had to watch what they were able to do because of I keep wanting to call it the comic code. They were restricted by censors of how much violence and what they could show to children around that time.
Well, right. And Cade makes that point. I think a lot of it was done because they had to keep the violence down. But, think about this, though. During the same time, we had Dungeons and Dragons. We had Thundar the Barbarian with his laser sword cutting people up. I mean, I guess he never really saw.
They didn't show blood.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, you might be onto something there, Willow. Dave Mattingly says Solomon Grundy wants pants too. I'm not quite sure what that means, Dave, but
I know Solomon Grundy always had pants.
Yeah, here's Solomon Grundy. He wears like pants and a jacket and a shirt. Solomon Grundy want pants too. Maybe I'm supposed to do it in the voice. Is that I need context, Dave. Context. And oh my gosh, we have so many comments. George Soroy is joining us, and he says, Challenge of the Super Friends was my jam. Banded together from distant galaxies. Dun dun dun, ba da 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 da. Everybody, dun da 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 dum da da. Nobody. Okay.
I got some dance moves for you.
Mermaid and Barnacle Boy. I love it, D. Keep it up. And all right, so this is interesting. Cade says the DCAU Aquaman story was dramatic because he lost his hand rescuing his infant son from near death. I know what Drew's talking about. That's right. And in Justice League Unlimited, he had the harpoon hand, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And Justice League Unlimited, originally just the Justice League, and then later Justice League Unlimited was a direct, not spin-off, but it was directly influenced by the Super Friends, later years, the Galactic Guardians and the Superpower show. And this is a case where, as much as I love Super Friends, the Justice League animated series is the superior series. And there we could, talk about that all day long. But Dave Manningly says, Jan must be Aquaman's favorite hero. I think you mean Zan. Because Zan becomes water. So Zan would be Aquaman's favorite hero.
It's so weird. That's my daughter's boyfriend's name.
Zan?
Yeah. I call him Zamboni.
He's probably, you need to ask his parents, he's probably named after this Super Friends character.
Okay.
I would be willing to bet $10.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of Zans.
Yeah. And Cade says, but I can totally see Beyond Comics where the DC animated universe got Mondo inspiration from the Super Friends series. Yes, they did. And Cade had mentioned that in our email conversations this morning that there's an episode of the Super Friends that was almost directly adapted into the Justice League. Secret Origins episode, and maybe Escape from Space City in the Universe of Evil episode. And it may be interesting to draw the parallel between the DC animated universe version known as the Justice Lords, which was inspired by the Universe of Evil, and all of these episodes made him wonder how much inspiration those people making the cartoons of the 2000s had taken from the show. A lot, because this is the show that we grew up with. And this is the show that informed, our love for these characters. And Dave Mattingly says the recent Wonder Twins comic is very good. Yes, it was. And Kate is right. So in the 70s and 80s, parental groups were very intense. Their complaining got us Scooby-Doo. I think he means Scrappy-Doo, and later a pup named Scooby-Doo.
I love a pup named Scooby-Doo. I love it.
Of course you do.
That was my fave too, Drew.
I love it.
And Cade says, can't truly compare Justice League to Super Friends because it is a different time. They're valuable for different reasons. There's corny heroes and serious heroes. Both have value. You know what, though? So, little known fact, and those watching will know this, who were fans of the show. The characters that they introduced, El Dorado, Apache Chief, Black Vulcan, and Samurai, and Rima, the Jungle Girl, never, ever appeared or made the transition into the DC Comics universe.
Oh.
Yeah, I never understood why. It's kind of like the same thing with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Marvel never did a comic series based on that trio. And I just always felt like that was a missed opportunity. So another comment from Dave Mattingly. I'm with Drew. A pup named Scooby-Doo was fantastic. So, yeah. Yeah, Drew and Dee are Scooby-Doo fans. And Drew's frozen. Or is he just
Not.
I'm
catatonic?
not frozen.
He's still blinking.
So, was there any? I sent you guys trivia about this show. Was there any trivia facts that really stood out to anybody?
Just
Go ahead, Dee.
I'm just kidding.
I'm waiting for Dave to type in the chat for his fun facts.
I was interested to see that Casey Kasem was part of the cast there and the voiceover. Yeah, he's one of my favorite guys.
He did Robin.
Yep, as per usual.
And do you know that he and the voice actor for Superman, Danny Dark, and Casey Kasem,
Great name.
Yeah, it is. Are the only two voice actors that did the voices throughout the entire run. So Casey Kasem was Robin. Holy rusted metal, Batman.
I can't do his voice. I'm going to speak normal.
You're
Casey
listening
Kasem's
to
voice
America's Top 40 with Casey Kasem. Casey Kasem.
D. Barty is not listening by Casey Kasem.
I actually know who that is.
Oh,
Casey
nice.
Kasem did a lot of cartoon voices. A lot of people don't realize how prolific he was the original Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. Casey Kasem.
He did that voice for many years, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did Bumblebee on the Transformers. He did a bunch of voices. So final thoughts about Super Friends.
It's good for little kids. I mean, I wonder if they were to redo kind of like the Justice League or Justice Society, if they would actually introduce some of the Super Friends.
Well, I mean, all of the characters are in the Justice League movies today, the Justice League series. And there's a great new series called Justice League Action, which is phenomenal. I think it's even better than Justice League International. The animation is so crisp, it's so fluid, it's a lot of fun, and it's probably one, D, that Nathan has seen because it's on air now. Does Nathan watch Batman, Superman cartoons?
No.
No?
Nope. No, I don't know if he's quite old enough for all of that yet. He's still in his SpongeBob and Spidey and his Amazing Friends stage. Like, you know, I try to get him to watch stuff that's a little older, and he's like, no.
Well, he
did like Mario last night.
Well,
that was pretty funny. He's in the movie theater going, just making his commentary. It's hilarious. There was one part where like Princess Peach was like, let me see what you're made of. And Nathan's like, meat. He's made of meat. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Only my child.
That's funny. Well, Cade also comments with Cartoon Commotion, Casey Kasem was their computer too. Oh wait, no, he wasn't Bumblebee. He was Cliff Jumper. My bad.
Yep.
But yeah. But he did a lot of voices. A lot of voices. And when you know that it's Casey Kasem, you hear it. Mm-hmm. And you can see it all throughout the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s cartoon series.
I was going to.
Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Some of the characters that they had in Super Friends, would they be able to do that in today's standards with how supercharged we are about racial stereotyping?
Okay, so you're talking about these characters, the characters that they
Yeah.
introduced. El Dorado, maybe. Apache Chief, maybe, probably not. They would have to call him something different than a chief. Apache. They would have to give him a different name. Black Vulcan, maybe. How
Yeah,
do you feel about that, Drew?
he's like he'll be fine. I think Apache Chief will be fine too, because it just basically is a tribe, and the highest rank you could be in that tribe. And Black, yeah, Black Vulcan looks like Black Lightning basically.
Yeah, and
So
he was basically Black Lightning, and
I
I
think
don't know why
I
they
think all
didn't
these
just
characters will be good. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, Samurai, he was not an Asian stereotype at all. He was a badass samurai tornado. I mean,
Okay.
remind me of,
he was awesome.
remind me of Shang-Chi a lot.
Okay.
All right, yeah. And Rima the Jungle Girl, she she was a public domain character that DC Comics adapted for this show, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't remember her on this show at all. But she must have been kind of like Shanna the She Devil or Jana of the Jungle, kind of like a Tarzan analog, but in beautiful female form.
So
White
eye
hair,
candy.
olive skin. What's that?
That's why
So
you
eye
don't.
candy.
Yeah, that's why you don't remember her. She's your typical eye candy. She's
Well, no,
forgettable.
but I mean, I've seen things written where she had like the strength of a tiger and the speed of a cheetah kind of thing, and she
It
was
don't
a
matter.
legit.
She's tall, blonde. I mean, forgettable.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't think I would forget someone like that. I'm just saying.
Attack of the 50-foot woman much?
Yikes.
Well, but she didn't. She didn't. I don't think she got big. But D, you would be excellent cosplaying this character.
Yeah, I was waiting on that.
You got the hair, you got the figure, you got the stature, you got the attitude.
Thank you.
So,
At the super street.
I give it 3 out of 5 bowls. By the way.
Okay. What about you, Willow?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm with Drew. Well, I think I'd give it more like a 4 or something because I don't know.
Well,
I'm sure there's some episodes that I should be watching, other than judging from the ones that I did watch. And
well,
and
and
Dave's comment.
We'll get to it in a minute, D. Everyone stay together. Cade says Super Friends has a corny charm. I think I'd watch it for that glimpse into the simpler days of heroes. Yeah, and look, and that's what it's all about. It's about the fun and just having fun on Saturday mornings. And this was integral to my Saturday mornings. It's in my top 5 greatest of all time. But even at the top 5 greatest of all time, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 bowls of cereal, because it was improved upon by later iterations with Justice League, Young Justice, Teen Titans, and the new DC or the new Justice League Action Hour or Justice League Action Show, which is phenomenal. But it's all building upon this foundation. And because of that, I love it, and I love it. And D. Mattingly says, I, for one, believe that D was raised in a jungle. Not too far off, D or Dave. She was raised on a farm.